Welcome. In today's explainer, we are going to cut straight through all the myths, the legends, and those wild conspiracy theories you always hear, and we're going to break down the actual, grounded business strategies that built history's most powerful financial empire. We are, of course, talking about the Rothschild family. So let's dive right into this, because the business mindset we're about to unpack is absolutely going to change the way you look at scaling, risk management, and leverage.
It's a pretty fascinating question, right? How did a single family, starting with absolutely nothing, no royal blood, no massive inherited estates, how did they manage to scale their influence to the point of literally bankrolling entire nations? At their peak, these ultra-rich financiers operated a lot like the IMF or the World Bank does today, just issuing these massive loans to rebuild countries. And the answer isn't magic. It's an incredible masterclass in strategic problem solving.
So, here is our blueprint for today. We'll be covering their rise from the ghetto to royal court, mastering the modern network, the code of conduct, calculated risks during war, using information as a weapon, and finally, we'll wrap up with modern lessons for entrepreneurs.
All right, part 1. From ghetto to royal court. Frankfurt, 1744. Let's set the stage.
The founder of this whole empire, Meyer Amschel Rothschild, was born into a reality where his people were entirely denied basic citizenship. They couldn't easily own land, they couldn't get normal business licenses, and they had these incredibly strict curfews. But Meyer was wildly ambitious. He realized that if he was going to make it as a financial agent, he needed the absolute most powerful client possible. So he meticulously curated a portfolio of rare, antique coins just to capture the attention of Prince William of Hesse-Kassel. And you know what? It worked. He won the prince's trust, became his official financial agent, and crucially gained these special privileges to operate outside that restrictive ghetto.
Meyer really cemented his value using a tactic we now call front-running. You see, Prince William had a major problem. He rented out his armies to the British, but when his soldiers went out and fought abroad, the local Hesse-Kassel coins were completely useless. His armies desperately needed universally accepted gold and silver. So, Meyer stepped right in. He collected gold from the local citizens in exchange for those local coins, and then he turned around and supplied that gold directly to the prince. He solved a massive logistical nightmare for his biggest client, while quietly earning a very handsome 7 to 8% commission from both sides of the transaction. Absolutely brilliant, right? But Meyer knew that tying his entire survival to just a single prince in a highly volatile Europe was incredibly dangerous. Which brings us to Section 2, Mastering the Modern Network, a Decentralized Empire. Meyer built what was essentially the ultimate decentralized corporate structure. Because Europe was prone to war every 10 to 15 years, if Prince William fell, Meyer's entire business would collapse with him. So he took some very calculated risk management action. He sent his 5 sons out to establish branches in Europe's major financial capitals. We're talking Frankfurt, London, Vienna, Naples, and Paris. By doing this, he instantly diversified his risk. If one empire was attacked, the family's wealth and operations could safely pivot to the other branches. He basically built an 18th century multinational corporation. But how do you keep 5 powerful brothers running a massive international network from eventually turning on each other? Section 3. The Rothschild Code of Conduct. Strict family rules. Meyer established this incredibly strict internal framework to ensure the family wouldn't collapse from the inside. First, keep business strictly within the family. Second, internal arguments never ever leave the room. Third, the core business operations were restricted exclusively to the direct male heirs. But that final rule, that was the real secret sauce. All 5 brothers shared total profits and total losses equally. If one brother made a massive fortune, it belonged to everyone. If one made a terrible mistake, well, they all took the hit. This flawlessly aligned their incentives, making them the earliest, most unified version of corporate shareholders. Let's see how all of this built into their greatest opportunity yet. In Section 4. Calculated risks during war. The Napoleonic Wars. When Napoleon attacked, Prince William was actually forced to flee, but before he left, he dropped a massive deposit of 2 to 3 million pounds with Meyer for safekeeping. Meyer immediately deployed this capital to his sons, especially to Nathan over in London. And here is where the genius really strikes. The British Army, led by the Duke of Wellington, was out there fighting the French, but the British Army had a logistical nightmare of their own. Their local British currency was completely worthless to the local vendors on French soil. The soldiers out there desperately needed physical gold and silver to survive and just keep fighting. So the brothers executed a brilliant multinational arbitrage operation to solve this. Step 1, James Rothschild, who was stationed right there in Paris, started buying up British currency from locals at heavily discounted rates, mostly because nobody else in France wanted it. Step 2, he smuggled this cheap British currency back across the channel to Nathan in London. Step 3, because British currency was perfectly valid in London, Nathan used it at full value to buy massive quantities of gold. And Step 4, they used their pan-European network to smuggle that gold directly to the Duke of Wellington's British Army. They essentially became the private financial engine for the British military.
And honestly, this operation birthed an entirely new advantage for the family. Section 5. Information as a weapon. Speed is power.
The very same smuggling network of ships, horses, and specially trained pigeons that the brothers used to move all that gold, it became an unparalleled high-speed information highway. Check out this timeline from 1815. When Napoleon was finally defeated at the Battle of Waterloo, the Rothschild pigeons took flight. Nathan Rothschild, sitting in London, received the news of the British victory hours before the actual British government did. I mean, in the financial world, having the news first is literally everything. This was essentially the 1800s version of high-frequency trading. Because Nathan knew Britain had won the war, he also knew that the value of British currency and government bonds was about to absolutely skyrocket the second the general public found out. Armed with this asymmetric information, he aggressively compounded the millions of pounds entrusted to the family by just hoarding government bonds. They took immense calculated risks here, but because they possessed vastly superior information to anyone else, the payoff was absolutely exponential. Their resulting immense wealth completely flipped the global power dynamic. I mean, they were no longer just agents anymore. They were effectively the central bank of Europe. When nations like Austria and France needed to rebuild after the wars, they had to go to the Rothschilds for millions in loans. And because the family held all the capital, they dictated the terms and conditions to the governments, not the other way around.
So, what does this all mean for us? Section 6, Modern Lessons for Entrepreneurs.
Let's translate these sweeping historical maneuvers into actionable financial management lessons for your startup or business today. First, solve major problems for high-value clients. Just like Mayer did with the Prince's Gold, find a massive friction point for a wealthy client and eliminate it. Second, diversify your locations to mitigate risk. Don't rely on one single client, one platform, or one market. Decentralize it. Third, align your team's incentives. That shared profit and loss mandate meant the brothers either won together or lost together. You want to create that exact same ownership mentality in your team. And fourth, invest in superior information networks. In business, the one who gets the accurate data first is usually the one who wins.
At the end of the day, the rules of scaling, risk, and leverage haven't really changed since the 1700s, only the technology has. So, taking a hard look at your own network, your information streams, and your approach to risk management, how are you going to apply these battle-tested tactics to your 21st century venture?